Hello everyone, welcome to sqadia.com. Today we are discussing mechanisms of cell signaling and we are at last section. This particular section discusses the cell surface receptors and their function, of course. So we are going to start off with the discussion of the overview of the cell surface receptors. We have over here, what happens is we are going to have a discussion over the cell surface receptors. We have already discussed its types and the types of signaling. And then in this particular portion, we are going to just have an overview of different types of receptors. We are going to have a look on the receptor tyrosine kinases, not signaling, WNT signaling pathway, Hedgehog signaling pathways. This would be followed by the discussion of the regulation of the glycogen metabolism by the cyclic AMP, and we are going to see how its concentration increase or decrease result in the activation of the downregulation or the inhibition of the glycogen synthesis pathways. This would be followed by the discussion of the smooth muscle contraction by the nitric oxide and the cyclic GMP, of course. So let's get started. So we have different types of cell surface receptors, starting off with the G protein-coupled receptors. Of course, G protein-coupled receptors, as the name indicate, is linked to a trimeric G protein containing an alpha unit and the beta gamma subunit, of course. And it basically controls the activity of the effector proteins, and we discussed the cases of adenylyl cyclase in the previous section as well. So what happens is it activates the cytosolic or the nuclear transcription factors, and this activation can be occurring in different pathways, and main activation will involve the protein kinase A. We are talking about the cytokine receptor pathways. It is associated, of course, with the JAK kinases activity, because when the ligand is going to bind with the receptor, it is going to cause the dimerization and the activation of the JAK kinases. And these JAK kinases also are then going to cause the activation of the STAT protein. The cytosolic STAT proteins are then going to migrate towards into the nucleus by the activation of the unmasking of the nuclear localization signals, and they are going to cause the phosphorylation of that particular complex, which is then going to cause the activation of the cytokine genes. Talking about the receptor tyrosine kinases also are going to cause the activation of the tyrosine kinase activity, and we have over here the activate. They are also going to cause the activation of the cytosolic kinases. We are talking about the mitogen activated protein kinases or the MAP kinases, and they basically translocate into the nuclear membrane again through the same mechanisms through the nuclear unmasking of the nuclear localization signal, also known as NLS. And they, of course, are going to cause the activation of the transcription factor by their phosphorylation, of course, and these activated transcription factors are going to bind with the initiatory signals so that the gene upregulation, gene transcription process begins. We have over here the TGF-beta receptors. The TGF-beta receptors plays an important functions because the TGF-beta is being secreted in an inactive form, where it is being converted into a mature form, and then it's binding with its receptor, resulting in the activation of the serine threonine kinase activity, and of course this is going to cause the activation of the SMAD proteins. The SMAD proteins are then SMAD3 is then going to bind with the SMAD4, also known as co-SMAD protein, and this whole complex is going to cause the phosphorylation of, again, the transcription factors, and they are moving from the cytosol into the nucleus. Of course, this is going to cause the activation of the genes that are being required by the activation of the TGF-beta receptors. We have hedgehog receptors. This plays an important part when they are being tethered by the membrane signaling that is specific for the cholesterol anchor. So what happens in this particular case, we have a controlled processing of the transcription factor, and this controlled processing is being done by the proteolysis. We are talking about the ligation by the activation of the ubiquitin ligase activity, where it is being tagged with the ubiquitin molecules so that they are being degraded by the proteasome. So, of course, hedgehog binding also will result in the release of the molecule from the cytosolic complex, of course, that we have already discussed in the previous section. Of course, moving on towards the WNT or Wnt receptors, what happens in this particular case? In the absence, we have what happens in this particular case, when ligand they are going to bind with the 7 membrane transport protein complex. What happens is A are going to cause an activation of the transcription factor again from a multi-protein complex, and of course that is particular complex is present in the cytosol, of course. Then we are talking about the Notch delta signaling pathway. What happens in this particular case, the ligand delta, when binds with the Notch receptor, what happens, it causes the cleavage through a metalloproteases known as the TACER. We are going to discuss in this particular signaling pathway in the coming lecture as well. We have over here what happens is the ligand delta is a transmembrane, of course, protein on a signaling sense. So what happens is the cytosolic domain of the Notch, we are talking about the cytosolic domain of the Notch, is being released as being proteolyzed by a proteolyzed by a particular enzyme that we are going to see in detail. What happens is this particular proteolysis causes the dissociation of the Notch, of course, molecules, and they are going to cause the activation of the nuclear transcription factors. And these factors, of course, when they are being activated, they are going to cause the activation of the transcription initiation, resulting in the upregulation of the gene, upregulation of the messenger RNA there, and then going to be translated to form the proteins. We are talking about the cytokines, we are talking about the molecules that plays an important functions in the proliferation as well. So let's talk about regulation of glycogen metabolism by the cyclic AMP. So what happens is the increased cyclic AMP is going to cause the inhibition of the glycogen, the stimulation of the glycogen breakdown, inhibition of the glycogen synthesis as well. While when there is less or decreased amount of cyclic AMP that is present, it is going to cause the reverse of what increased cyclic AMP did. So it is, of course, the decreased cyclic AMP production is going to cause the inhibition of the glycogen metabolism. It is also going to cause the stimulation of the glycogen synthesis. So we'll start off what happens in case of the increased cyclic AMP. It is going to cause the stimulation of the glycogen breakdown. So we have over here glycogen phosphorylase kinase. It prevents the activation of the glycogen phosphorylase kinase, and of course when this is being prevented, it of course is going to cause the phosphorylation of the glycogen phosphorylase, of course. Now what happens is the glycogen is going to be when the glycogen of course was being converted into glucose 1-phosphate, this shows that the pKa, and the pKa of course was activated when there was increased cyclic AMP production. So increased pKa resulted in the activation of the GPCR, which then caused the breakdown of the glycogen phosphorylase into the glycogen into, of course, the glucose 1-phosphate. Similarly, it is of course going to cause the inhibition of the glycogen synthesis. We have over here the glycogen synthase. It basically causes the phosphorylation of it, and it causes the inhibition of the phosphoprotein phosphatase. What happens in this particular case, after it's being activated, it's being phosphorylated, it causes the inactivated form of the phosphoprotein phosphatase, of course. So what happens in the decreased cyclic AMP, the result of course is the opposite. It basically causes the dephosphorylation, inactivation of the GPCR, and it of course causes the inactivation of the phosphatization or the dephosphorylation of the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme. So of course it also causes the inhibition of the glycogen synthesis by the breakdown of by the inactivation of the glycogen synthase, which then of course cause the synthesis of the glucose from the glycogen. So it is again in this particular case going to cause the stimulation of the glycogen synthesis by the glycogen synthase. Activated glycogen synthase is then going to cause the activation, the formation of the glycogen from the UDP glucose, of course. So talking about the localization of the protein kinase A, we are talking about this particular localization in heart. So what happens is we have phosphodiesterase PDE. The basal activity of the phosphodiesterase basically keeps cyclic AMP in check. So what happens in this particular case, the phosphokinase, we have pKa, they are being binded with MAKP. What happens in this particular case, this particular complex is ligated with the phosphodiesterase. So these binded complex, these binded phosphodiesterase basically results in the decrease cyclic AMP production. And because these regulatory or activated or catalytic sites are being hindered by these particular sites of the pKa, so the pKa is present in this particular case in an inactive form. So what happens is when there is an androgen receptor activation, so it is going to result in the activation of the cyclic AMP, in the activation of the adenylate cyclase, in the activation. So what happens in this particular case, the cyclic AMP increase, when this particular cyclic AMP is going to be increased, it is then going to cause the activation, the removal of the inactive signals, the inactive portions, inhibitory portions of the pKa, and hence this is going to cause the removal of the inhibitory signals, resulting in the activation of the pKa domain. So what happens in this particular case, they are then going to cause the downregulation of the PDE or the phosphodiesterase activity, resulting in the upregulation or the activation of the protein kinase A. So these are then going to, of course, because these sites are being activated, these are then going to cause the activation of abundant different types of tyrosine kinase or the kinases activity. So after there is the phosphorylation of the PDE or the phosphodiesterase, this particular phosphorylation and activation would again result in decreased level of the cyclic AMP within the cytosol. So what happens in this particular case, the inhibitory portions are then again masked. These particular inhibitory portions, as shown in this particular C diagrams, they are going to again mask the activated signals, the activated portions or the catalytic signals, the catalytic portions of the protein kinase A. And this particular would result into the resting stage, where the basal PDE or the phosphodiesterase activity was keeping the cyclic AMP to that particular level, that this particular level was below the threshold that was required for the activation of the protein kinase A. So talking about the elevation of this calcium ions by the cytosolic IP3 and DAC pathway, we have already discussed this particular pathway when we discussed the portions of the phospholipase C activation. So what happens is phospholipase C, after being activated, it is going to cause the production of the diacylglycerol and the IP3 as well. Diacylglycerol is then going to cause the activation of the PKC along with the IP3, which then binded with the calcium channel, resulting in the release of the calcium channels. These calcium channels binded with the protein kinase C, and these binded with the protein kinase C resulted in the activation of the phosphorylations of the substrate. These, of course, then move towards the membrane, where it resulted in the opening of the calcium channels, and the calcium channels got elevated, of course. So talking about the regulation of the smooth muscle contraction by the nitric oxide and the cyclic GMP, what we have, of course, over here, the acetylcholine, that is going to bind with the acetylcholine receptors. It, of course, is going to cause the activation of the phospholipase C. Phospholipase C again will cause the activation of IP3. The calcium ions will be released from the endoplasmic reticulum and will bind with the calmodulin or calcineurin. These binded with the calmodulin will result in the activation of the nitric oxide synthase, which is then going to cause the activation of the nitric oxide from the arginine to the citrulline and nitric oxide. When these are being produced, they are going to cause the relaxation of the smooth muscles. They have by binding with the nitric oxide receptors, resulting in the production of protein kinase G, and these protein kinase G results in the relaxation of the smooth muscles. So we discuss in this particular section that the overview of the cell surface receptors, we discuss receptor tyrosine kinases, hedgehog receptors, WNT receptors, Notch delta receptors. We discuss MAP kinase signaling pathways, RAS MAP kinase pathways as well. We discussed, this was followed by the discussion of the regulation of the glycogen metabolism by cyclic AMP, how decreased level resulted in the inhibition, increased level resulted in the production. And we then discussed the smooth muscle contraction by the nitric oxide and the cyclic GMP. So that was all for this particular section. Thank you for watching sqadia.com.